maybe not so bad. And with that, I think we're ready to get this run started. So let's hand it over to Swordsman Kirby with Kirby and the Amazing Mirror.
Hey everyone, I'm Swordsman Kirby, and this is Kirby the Amazing Mirror 100%. So, are we ready for a countdown? I'm not sure. oh, I see. Okay, so, alright. I'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so Kirby Amazing Mirror is a very non-linear, like Metroidvania kind of game. This beginning part is just sort of like a tutorial. It shows off the different mechanics. This part is supposed to show off the multiplayer mechanic. We're just going to make a well-timed jump to skip waiting for the other Kirbys to help us out. Like with a lot of Kirby games, it starts off with a mix. Unfortunately I missed it. Alright, there we go. So what happens when you inhale 2 enemies that have abilities, there's a mix wheel that starts. Whoa, what the heck? AI Kirby's screwing me up. There is, like, basically all the different abilities are on a roulette wheel, and it's up to you to pick out, with good timing, which one you want it to stop on. So, one that I want is wheel. Unfortunately got it on second try, but that's okay. So wheel, as you can see, it has the best horizontal mobility throughout the entire game, and we're going to be using a lot of it, but unfortunately the game doesn't just give us the fastest ability right at the beginning, so we have to make. So the name of the game in 100% is you want to pretty much get full map complete. And what that means in this game is that you have all these chests, like the one that you just saw me pick up. Gotta get all of them, gotta open up all the shortcuts, and you gotta visit every single room, and you also have to beat the game. So all of that put together is 100%. It doesn't include some things, like for example going through every door, even though the game does keep track of that. And a couple other things that some people might suspect would be part of 100%. So coming up is the first mini-boss, it's Mr. Frosty. We're going to take these 2 Wallabies, throw it at him for a lot of damage, and then finish him off with wheel. Unfortunately, a little bit of unfortunate positioning from Frosty. And you'll see throughout the run there are big switches, and they essentially unlock shortcuts from the hub room to different areas of the game. So right now we're in an area called Moonlight Mansion. There's 9 different areas in the game where there are various switches hidden throughout that pretty much act as shortcuts, so we don't have to backtrack as much. So one thing about wheel is that you're invulnerable while you're in wheel. Of course, if you bonk into a wall, you get taken out, and you're vulnerable if you're turning around. Other than that, you can bowl through enemies as you like. Right now, it's kind of linear. We're just making our way to the first boss. You don't really have too many options of where to go, but that big switch that I just pressed opens up the whole rest of the world. Alright, King Golem's first boss kind of looks like Wispy Woods. All we're going to do is just use stone right next to the hitbox, and the boss is done in like 2 seconds. So right here, I'm going to reset. Game already saved my progress, so I can get out back to this hub room as quickly as possible. Normally, when you finish a boss, Kirby does a little dance. It lasts a couple of seconds, but since the game already saved, there's no reason from a speedrunning perspective to watch it, so we just reset straight through. Conveniently enough, the switch that just opened up, there's a wheel enemy right at the beginning of it. So we can actually just come back and reuse that wheel enemy as we wish, essentially. So towards the beginning, we're sort of unlocking more areas, hitting more and more switches as we progress through this down to this area called Olive Ocean. So right here, this part's can be a little bit scary. This game being the second Game Boy Advance game following Nightmare in Dreamland, there's a lot of sprite work and so forth, which is itself a remake of Kirby's Adventure. It inherits the mechanic where if you take any kind of damage, you lose your ability. So, especially in an underwater section where you can't inhale, it's really important that you don't take any damage whatsoever. Okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Oops. Okay, so we're coming up to the first place where we really drop wheel. It's for something called Mini. As you can see, there are a lot of these thin quarters, and you can only go through that if Kirby is small. There's a little bit of a puzzle here that we're getting through this particular chamber, but if we're careful about not letting the stars hit the spike, then we can just keep going without having to actually go through the puzzle. The layout for Amazing Mirror is very, very maze-like, and as a result, it contains a lot of dead end. And instead of actually going through the end of the dead end, since we just entered that room and that counts for map completion, we can actually just exit out. So we've seen now two ways of exiting back to the hub room. The first way was resetting, as you saw after the King Golem fight, and the second was phoning home. And normally speaking, resetting is a little bit faster, but because I had wheel, keeping it via the phone call happens to be a little bit faster rather than going back and trying to get another wheel enemy. Sorry. TV is a little bit loud. Alright, so more opening up to do. Unfortunately, I got a really inconvenient enemy pattern. A lot of enemies have random patterns in this game, and sometimes there's a bad combination of them that allows you to that prevents you from getting through areas smoothly. Since all I care about is visiting each room, sometimes you'll see me just go in and out of a room, and that counts. Whoa, where did Red Kirby? This is one of the problems with the AI mechanic, is that the longer you spend not resetting, the more chance they have to sort of get in your way. Oh, as you can see, the AI Kirbys are actually causing quite a bit of lag right now. Now I've got this pair of switches for Carrot Castle. And the way that this run is divided up is that it's divided up into various segments. And what I mean by a segment is something that starts at the hub room and then ends with coming back to the hub room. So resetting, phoning home, or even just walking back into the hub room normally or door. Okay, this is getting pretty bad with the lag. I'm going to try to call the AI Kirbys to try to fix that a little bit. Oh. Yeah, it's a little bit mysterious what causes the lag. Basically, these AI Kirbys wandering around, they wander around randomly, and sometimes it just has really negative effects. It seems like that phone call fixed that a little bit. So these different segments can be rearranged in many, many different permutations, many different ways of rearranging it. And this route that you're seeing now tries to group up the different areas. So like I said, there's 9 different areas. Tries to group up each area together, but Carrot Castle is a little bit disjointed. And right now I'm taking a very, very long-winded path up to the boss. Yeah, since we need to visit every room, we have to take these long paths. It happens that, it so happens that this particular path was best for the speedrun. This is Mega Titan. The first phase of Mega Titan can only be damaged by electric things. So in this case, the electric fence in the back. And then the second phase is just a normal one. Running into the mini boss, or sorry, the boss, being careful not to turn around while inside the boss's hitbox. So this is going to be an exception. If you're a really big fan of those Kirby dances, this is the one and only one you're going to get to see this entire run. And the reason is because this is the only boss that we actually finish off with wheel. So it's nice to keep it. It's worth waiting out the dance. So now we're back to All of Ocean. We can squeeze in a couple of donations here.
Sure thing. We've got Sir Andy with a $100 donation with no comment. A very generous of you, Andy. We've also got Cycrus with $30 saying, another summer, another GDQ. I'm glad you guys could get this virtual event up and running. I'm looking forward to a week of awesome speedruns.
Yeah, we can squeeze in one more.
Sure, we've got, let's see here. $10 from Astral Bodies saying, donating before bedtime here in the Big Apple. My coworkers and I always look forward to every single GDQ. Also, I gotta see Ori. Make it happen, chat.
Alright, so that was another strange mix setup. In this case, we want something like UFO, where the charge shot actually passes through walls, and that's going to be really important in this next room. One thing that kind of differentiates Amazing Mirror from its predecessor, Nightmare in Dreamland, is that all enemies have sort of like a health value associated with it. So one consequence of that is that after you defeat an enemy, its body stays on screen for a little bit longer, and you can still interact with it. So you can actually sort of juggle the body of the enemy. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to come up with some creative mix setups that you normally wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Enemies that just aren't close enough together. In this case, there's two bomb enemies I wanted to combine for something like UFO. The enemy you saw me kill right there is called a Mira. There's going to be a couple of them. But the main idea is that they're hiding a door behind them. But if you spook them, if you like scare them away, they take the door with them, and you have to reset the entire room in order for them to come back. Now there are some weird rules about exactly what caused them to disappear, but the big one is that if you're running towards them, they disappear. But that has different meanings depending on context. I'll try to explain that a little bit more later on. So each area, well, I guess 8 of the 9 areas has a boss associated with it. So area 1 is Rainbow Route. That's just sort of like the overworld, so there's no boss. But for all the remaining 8 areas, there's a boss at the end. So far we've seen King Golem, who was at the end of Moonlight Mansion, area 2. And then also Mega Titan, boss of area 5, Carrot Castle. So we're making our way towards boss of area 6. So since All of Ocean, as you might expect, has rooms with a lot of water in it, it's very important not to take any damage here. So right now I'm holding Stone, and you need to make it all the way to the boss without taking any hits. So Stone was really good for taking out King Golem. It's also going to be really good for taking out Gobbler, this boss right here. Basically, you can get off multiple attacks using essentially just one application of Stone. So in this case, I hit Gobbler like 4 or 5 times without even moving, essentially. I seem to have missed the chest so far. Trying to use the file counter to count up what I have. So unfortunately, I'll have to try to figure out what I'm missing later on. So just doing a little bit of cleanup in Olive Ocean. And this particular segment features a missile ability. It seems like just like sort of like a simple 8-directional thing, but it happens to be a lot more complicated than that. The optimal way of controlling it is to do a lot of short 45-degree turns. In my case, not the most skilled with it, so sometimes I resort to these weird 90-degree turns that involve first turning around and then making the 90 turn. For whatever reason, that makes it much more consistent in control and doesn't have as much sideways drift when you do that. So these dead ends aren't just like dead ends with nothing behind them. They actually contain these things called goal games. It's like a little mini game where you can, try to get extra health or 1-ups and things like that. But even though there's like a door associated with it, you'll see this big door coming up right here. It doesn't actually count as a different room, so we don't actually need to visit it. Alright, so making our way to Peppermint Palace. Conveniently enough, it's actually really close to Carrot Castle. So here it is. And this is Peppermint Palace, and we're gone. So in reality, that's just one of those like ducking in and out of rooms. We're actually going to take a backdoor entrance into Peppermint Palace. This is a good time for more donations.
Sure thing. We've got $50 from Fraud Slayer saying, been watching GDQ VODs for a couple of years now, but haven't donated up to this point. With the marathon being virtual this year, this seems like a perfect time to throw in some cash and reinforce that, even without an in-person event, this community is always generous. Good luck to the runners. We've also got an anonymous $75 donation that says, thanks for doing so much good while still having so much fun. SGDQ hype.
Yeah, it's time for a couple more.
Yeah, trying to sort them out here a little bit. We've got too many of them. We've got
a good problem to have.
We got Chowder16 donates $10 saying, we need Doctors Without Borders now more than ever. Keep it all rolling. Mr. Copy donates $25 saying, longtime lurker, found out about the current host through this amazing channel. I would like to shout out everyone who's helping out even with the current situation at hand. And a simple comment from Dying Ace, $50 saying, rougher days won't slow us down.
So immediately there's UFO enemy right here, and the fully charged UFO attack is also something that does a lot of damage, so it's really useful for that mini boss. We don't need Wheel for too much longer, so convenient to switch off there. Wheel is not exactly the greatest attacking one, but sometimes it's just worth holding on to it, doing maybe inefficient damage to mini bosses just because you get to keep it. You get to keep it. So I've got two enemies in my mouth right here. Alright, first frame or first ability is Hammer. The way that the mix wheel works is that the relative order, like I said, like some kind of like roulette wheel that contains all the abilities. The relative order doesn't change, but the starting position is determined by which, what's the first enemy that you inhale. So that determines like a different place, but essentially if you always inhale the enemies in the same order, like one after the other, the mix will always be the same. So it's always down to you to time it correctly, and there's no randomness whatsoever. So besides hitting that peg from earlier, Hammer, as you might expect from a lot of Kirby games, the fully charged attack does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I got a bad pattern. Oh, I got a really bad pattern. Alright, cleaned it up, kind of. So, Wiz is essentially 3 charged hammers and a little bit of extra attacks. Yeah, it really seems like I'm missing a chest here. Towards the end, I'm gonna have to figure out which one I forgot. So, the next 2 mini bosses I fight have an interesting strat for how to take care of them quickly. But before that, there's a chest with candy in it. Kind of fun. Doesn't really help with much right here. Maybe you like can walk through one enemy, but that's about it. Yeah, I guess what happened is that the number of collectibles that they had was outnumbered by the number of chests. So a lot of chests have just like one-time consumables like 1-ups, food, stuff like that. Okay, good pattern there. What happened there was that the double star actually connected with Battlefire twice, allowing to do like double damage. And that was only possible because Battlefire was moving to the right as I was spinning the double star into it. So the mini boss coming up here, similar effect. So we'll get to that in a sec. I'm really curious about which one of those those chests I'm missing. So coming up here, a little bit of a neat way of combining for a double star. Got this flamer here that's moving around this platform. Combine for a double star this way. I'm actually just purposely running into Box Boxer. Most of the time it will run across to the right, allowing us to do that same exact double star strategy that we did on Battlefire. This is going to be the one and only use of Fighter. And what Fighter has a couple of moves, but also like one of them being this kind of spinning kick. It's a little bit faster than running. I have just like a small variation in movement. Some of the other attacks that it does this like uppercut kick, does those fists that go through walls. And it also has like a downward bump like this. Okay, and that's Rainbow Route. So coming up here is a very, very long section. Not very long, but pretty important section of the run, which I call Smash Tour. You'll see exactly what I mean in a sec. In the meantime, I can fit in a couple donations.
Let's see, we've got we've got an anonymous $10 donation saying it's been years since I've been able to donate, but I can this time. Yeah, any $10 helps. So if you're in the same position as anonymous here, do not worry. We accept all donations. Sly Dante donates $15 saying, I am always impressed for what GDQ does for those that need help every year, and considering what we're all going through right now, we need fun and altruistic events like GDQ now more than ever. Keep up the amazing work.
So that was indeed Master Hand, and what Master Hand gives you when you swallow it is an ability called Smash. And Smash has essentially what you see in like I guess some moves out of Kirby's melee moveset. You know, for example, things like the stone, like down B, forward B, you got the hammer, up B, you got final cutter. There's the Smash ability has a lot of versatility, especially when it comes to getting chests and like essentially like solving puzzles with it. And it's really important. It's like a 10-minute stretch where you basically can't lose this ability without losing tons of time. Now, this part of Olive Ocean, it's essentially purposely designed for you to lose your ability. You know, just spikes and enemies everywhere to try to force you to drop an ability. So if you come in here with no ability, you'd have to fight a mini boss in order to get the chest in this area. Luckily, we were able to keep Smash throughout the whole thing. So we can just hit this peg and progress without even looking at the mini boss. Like it's into the Olive Ocean map. Alright, and then, you know, moving around, here there's one part of Rainbow Route and Moonlight Mansion that makes use of Smash as well. And this is, I guess, maybe if you stretch it a little bit, you could consider this a useful glitch. So one thing that the final cutter does for Smash is that it shakes the screen. So when that happens, some things get moved around. So in particular, these big metal blocks. The intended way of actually getting to this blocked off room right here is to call the other Kirbys and have like them collectively suck the block to the left. But in practice, this is actually really, really inconsistent. The Kirbys really do not cooperate. So what we do is that we actually push the block to the right a little bit with the screen shaking of the final smash. Oh, sorry, not final smash, the final cutter. Normally, when you push it to the right, by the time you have room to squeeze over, it's actually blocking the door already. But in that case, I guess this is like maybe you can consider like a hitbox abuse or some kind of glitch where if you turn around at just the right time, whatever strange properties of Kirby's hitbox allow you to sneak right past and into the room. You don't have to call the Kirbys at all. Here we are with Battlefire. Luckily I got a good pattern where it just stays in the center. It can dance around a lot and just like run into you repeatedly with like no pause in between. Fortunately for us, you know, it just moved straight to the middle and we just did a couple of hammer attacks to take care of it. Oops. And just for safety, using stone to just safely roll down. And I guess this is like the one instance where for the hub room, you know, you just walk back in like this. I should mention that right now I'm playing on the Japanese version. And the reason why we do that is because, you know, normally the Japanese version saves on like faster text boxes. I guess you can kind of think of it like that. The main difference between the Japanese version and the other versions, like the US and the European versions, is that you can advance through the title screen like about a second faster. So every single time we reset, that saves like around a second when you play on the Japanese version. There's like a press start text that shows up. In the Japanese version, you can actually just skip right past it, but on all the other versions, you need to wait for that message to fully appear before you can actually go to the file select. This room's kind of tricky. Luckily, that UFO enemy cooperated. And luckily, we got out of there unscathed. Alright, this is like the one place where you can actually use some speed for the smash ability. It's pretty much just Kirby running around, but the versatility it allows you to solve or get multiple chests in one go that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Do we have time for a quick donation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Anonymous donates $400 with no comment. It's a very, very generous donation.
Alright, another quite random mini boss. I'm gonna try to use stone. Attack it twice. Unfortunately, Pan didn't move out of the way, so I got grabbed. Not too bad though. Luckily, I was able to take care of it pretty quickly. I just want to double check that I got everything here. I don't know why, but after the first chest I missed, I feel a little bit less certain. Yeah, this is perhaps the most sluggish part of the run, where we have to swim through this long water section in order to get this one chest. It doesn't seem like there's a nice way of like going the other path in order to get that chest, but maybe there's a route change that has yet to be discovered. Right. Normally in this section you're supposed to pick up the cutter from the Sir Kibble enemies. But it's a little bit tricky because there are these bomb blocks that block off different areas. With the final cutter from the smash ability, it's a lot safer actually. Almost finished up with using smash. Alright, so we saw previously where I used a golem to get stone, but it turns out that it gives you a different ability depending on the attack that's doing. So in this case it was rolling towards me, that counts as wheel, and if it tries to punch you, that counts as fighter. Alright, and Frosty is camping out towards the wall. It's not the most ideal pattern, but luckily we got out of that without taking any damage. So this warp start brings us to Candy Constellation, the most remote area. Once you're here, the only way to exit out is to phone home. Right now we're in the bottom section of Candy Constellation, which is this like loop of 6 rooms. We don't need to go through the longest of those rooms. We'll just sort of snip off the end, I guess. Now, kind of the confusing thing about this casually is that, you know, there's an exit to the left and an exit to the right for all those rooms. And, you know, if you're playing this like a normal platformer, you know, moving from left to right, you'll get stuck in this loop indefinitely. And the reason for that is because of this bomb block right here that, you know, you hit if you're moving from left to right. So the solution for getting out of the bottom half is actually to move from right to left. So when we go back through that door transition, that area will be open to us. But before we do that, we're just going to get our favorite attacking ability, Stone. Break through this peg, and this gives us the sound player. It's one of the key collectibles. And then run to the end of this section. So yeah, as you can see, this area is open up now. And this is now going to be the top half. You know, one big switch. So the shape of Candy Constellation, you know, is Constellation. It's kind of like the Little Dipper Constellation or Big Dipper, whatever it's called. And so this part is sort of just like mostly a kind of linear part with a few branches. So the bottom half is kind of like the cup part. Oh, okay. In this case, I don't need to keep my ability, so I'll just spit it out. Reset. So with that switch that we just hit, we're going to be going through the rest of Candy Constellation, mostly with wheel. We're going to be backtracking through this particular room a couple times. And, you know, if this were like a multiplayer run where you had, instead of the AIs controlling the other Kirby, like human control players, you could cut down on the backtracking, but in our case, since this is just a single player run, you know, the backtracking is sort of unavoidable. Alright, so one singular use of beam. A lot of abilities just get like a single use, and that's like all you see of them the entire run. It leans pretty heavily on wheel, missile, stone, and smash. Yeah, this wheel enemy really coming in handy. Oops. Yeah, kind of a weird quirk is that when Kirby enters his face like nosedive animation, his hitbox actually gets a little bit bigger. So if you're falling down a one tile gap like that, you'll bonk into blocks. Yeah. So yeah, we have time for a couple donations.
Alright, we've got Zalmachi donating $10 saying, I love GDQ and I'm more than happy for the chance to make my small difference. We've also got Ceaselessly donating $10 saying, we've had some great haikus, but how about a limerick? There once was an SGDQ, packed with runs and interviews. Though it was online, I had a great time, so cheers to the runners and crew.
So this master hand fight is a little bit trickier. Master Hand is in the air, so you need to constantly unwheel and jump up to the height of Master Hand. But luckily we got a pretty good pattern. That one, there's big potential for losing time. This is not very convenient to fight. Alright, a little bit of a speed test, but with wheels it's really easy. The one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that when you hit an enemy, you'll hear like a sound, and you actually pause in place for a little bit. This is something known as hit lag, and one of the, I guess, most important optimizations for wheel movement is avoiding as much hit lag as possible. Each time you hear a little sound, it actually loses 3 frames in a 60 FPS game. So that's only like 0.05 seconds. But considering how much we rely on wheel throughout this run, it actually does add up pretty significantly. And obviously for this vertical section, we're going to go with missile instead of wheel. And making our way to the final boss, or the boss of Candy Constellation. I'm going to do something here, which is to all the AI Kirbys. Hopefully they'll help out with the attacking. This is the only boss where it really, like, where they can actually, like, make a significant difference. Fortunately, not getting best luck. Okay, close enough. Alright, that's 5 out of 8 bosses down. Yeah, I think this is like, I think the first Kirby game that was like under development after Melee came out. I think like Nightmare and Dreamlight came out in like 2002 or something like that. It's probably started on that before Melee came out. So this game has a couple of Melee references. So one of the upgrades that you can get 100% is extra health. Normally you start out the game with 6 health, but it seems like right now I have 8. And it's useful for rooms like this where it's just like tons and tons of enemies, you know, just tanking at however many hits I want. Almost to the end of it. Luckily, the food item right there, and then reset. Yeah, when it comes to chests, you can reset any moment after you've picked it up, or sorry, after you've opened it. So basically, it's just open and then like split second later, a reset. So we're coming up to the boss of Cabbage Cavern, which is a notoriously random boss called Mold. There's potential for huge time loss here. Like either the fight goes like really quickly, or you can get completely trolled by Molly's patterns. So for that, there's 2 chests that we need to pick up, and it's off to Molly. And before that, there's a mini boss. It's going to do 2 quick hits with stone to take care of Bonkers. Alright, so the throw, basically what you do is that you suck in like a projectile and you can throw it back at Molly, but you can also hold it behind your back, and that also does a lot of damage as well. Okay, that was actually a pretty good fight. So just finishing off with a star. What Molly can do is that it can sort of fake you out a lot. Either not throw something, spawn the ceiling, just do all sorts of stuff that you know, doesn't allow you to do much damage to it. But fortunately I got a pretty good pattern there. Oops, I forgot to do my soft reset. So bonus Kirby dance. So right now we're making our way to what's probably the most difficult part of this run, which is the area called Mustard Mountain. there's a lot of different ways of losing time, and the movement is pretty tricky. It all starts off with this particular mix that I'm doing. So far, the mixes I've done require you to time it and stop the mix wheel at just the right time. This one, actually, it turns out that if you just let it go and let it run out, it gives you the ability that I want. In this case, Spark, the end of the mix wheel, happens to be Missile. The annoying part, though, is that the Sparkies move around very randomly. So, luckily I was able to inhale them pretty quickly, and they didn't give me any trouble. Like, once you've inhaled them, the mix is pretty much immediate. You just let the mix wheel go. The Mushroom Mountain has a lot of precise missile movement. Unfortunately, I took damage there. There's a copy essence, these little pedestal things that'll give me back missiles, so it's not too big of a deal. Now comes another tricky part here. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of tight missile movement throughout here. First, grab sword to hit this little switch. And then go back to using missile right afterwards. Okay. Yeah, these chip enemies are completely random, and you want to do like one single missile all the way over here. Unfortunately, I didn't really get the easiest to handle pattern there. Alright, another auto mix, as long as I inhale these two enemies, which can sometimes be annoying. Just let the mix wheel go and gives me a wheel. Whoops. So most of the time when you see the AI Kirby's, they're just wandering around randomly. In some rooms, they do have a pre-programmed behavior, like that room where I said that you're supposed to inhale the big block. In this room right here, they're programmed to stand on this switch until you get through it. And so this just allows me to keep wheel, like a strat that saves like 6 seconds or so. And now we're going to be going through pretty much the exact same thing, so now would be a good time for some more donation.
Well, donations we have. we have anonymous $15 donation saying Swordsman Kirby is doing an amazing job. Thank you guys for organizing the event this year. We've also got Nerdstalgic donating $15 saying it's pretty awesome to wake up to Swordsman Kirby just killing his run. Good luck, my dude.
Thank you. Alright. The only difference here is that now I'm going to use Mini. And go through this room instead. The reason why I like to take damage there is that you can get squished if you take damage right as you go through the thin chamber. Like, you take damage and you lose mini and then you become big, and that counts as getting squished. Damage allows you to avoid that. Alright, got that mix first try. That setup can be a little bit annoying, and recently I've been having trouble timing that mix, but luckily I got it first try. And this UFO allows you to hit, you know, like before, like a bomb block that's through a wall. The intended way of doing that is to go around with mini, which loses at least like 10 to 12 seconds. So even something like Cupid has a use in the run. So what I'm going to do is that off screen there's a rope that I can cut with the arrow of Cupid, and then I'll grab wheel here. So one use of Cupid. I think most people who've played this game consider Cupid to be pretty bad in ability, but even in the speedrun it has its use. Most Shadow Kirby's that I've been taking out, okay, I got bad luck there. You just attack them and leave. But in this case, the Shadow Kirby can hopefully drop an invincibility candy. I didn't get it, so I'll have to use stone for Battle Fire. Usually not too bad, but sometimes you can get kind of an annoying pattern to deal with. That fight was totally fine. Now, similar deal with Krako. Trying to get double hits each time I use the stone, and pretty standard fight there. Alright, before I continue on Mustard Mountain, I want to figure out where exactly did I miss that chest.
If I could interject, we've had a number of donations helpfully trying to remind you where that chest is. They believe it is in Carrot Castle.
Okay, I think...
Let me know if you want me to be more specific, because they've been more specific.
Okay. Right, thank you to all the people who are trying to help me out. Alright. Yep, there it is. The worst part is that I'll just get it now. Just take the L here. The worst part is that I actually had another chance to like take a peek at that location, but fortunately I thought of it too late. I suspected that was the one that I forgot, but thanks to all the people who were helping out. Yeah, I guess I'm not supposed to have wheel here, but I'll gladly take it. Oops, whatever. Probably not the most ideal choice of where to use wheel, but oh well. And then this will be the final cleanup. So I will grab mini buds to go to a different part of this room. And just a little bit of optimization here. If you run at normal speed, you'll be caught by that firewall. So we take damage to just walk right through it. Alright, so that takes care of Mustard Mountain. Now here's a whole section dedicated to missile movement. So this is actually the same area that we saw at the beginning of the run, this part of Moonlight Mansion. But this time we have missile here. The reason for that is because there are some metal blocks that we need to break. And that leads us to a different path over here. We're just gonna collect a few chests and then exit out, and then continue on with our missile move. Here I'm just going to damage myself off with Scordo. I have enough health, so it's not too big of a deal. This room, the enemies can be kind of annoying because they're all random. And while missile, normally if you attack an enemy head on, you explode off of it. But it is possible for enemies to swipe you from the side. So if you were to follow that, there's actually another warp star that leads you to Candy Constellation. Since we're completely done with Candy Constellation, there's no need to go that way again. So perhaps the biggest route change that happened since I started running this category was specifically that Warp Star got taken out and replaced with the Mr. Frosty Peppermint Palace Warp Star that you saw earlier in the run. I believe that saved something on the order of like 40 seconds. So it was quite a big time save. Alright, all for this one room, and then we exit out. Oh yeah, we can fit in a couple donations here.
Sure thing. We've got Ember151 who's saying, this year, since I'm working from home, I can actually watch SGDQ in the background while working. I wanted to pay it forward and thank everyone for organizing this event. Let's race towards 150K. And that's another $100 towards that 150K, so thank you very much for your donation. We also have Chris42 donating $20 saying, this was one of my favorite games as a kid. Well done to everyone at SGDQ and MSF.
This is, I guess, like another kind of shortcut. We don't really do anything with it. We're just trying to get room completion. We just take the shortcut twice and just end up where we are. Sorry, just end up right back where we started. We're gonna do another mix here off these two Waddle Doos, two beam enemies. It looks like an auto mix, but actually stop it at the second to last ability. Alright. Kind of annoying thing about how some of these chests are located. There's purposely tricky sections like that where you've got a room, like you look at the map, the room says you have there's a treasure in there, you go into the room, but it consists of 3 disjoint, like more than one disjoint section. And you have no idea where the correct one is. Alright, so that's it for Moonlight Mansion. Now we're on to our final area, that Area 8, Baddish Ruins. So unlike the previous one, previous lever that we saw, the shortcut where we just went through it for map completion, this one will actually be used in a clever way that cuts down on backtracking. So once you've hit all the big switches, first of all, there's an ability room that you can just go and get any ability that you want, or almost any ability that you want. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too slow to be used in the actual 100% run, so we actually never see that. Once again, it's not considered a separate room, so we never need to actually visit it. So there's 2 sets of levers. This is going to be the second set of levers. And the other one is actually located in Carrot Castle, so we'll be making a quick trip there in a little bit. Now we're at the outdoor section of Baddish Ruins. It's very important that you don't lose your wheel here, because you keep it for quite a bit longer, and if you take damage on any of these Scarfies, your ability star is almost certainly going to fall into a pit. I've neglected to mention a little bit of speed tech called a float cancel. In this game, when Kirby starts floating, there's sort of like an animation where he gasps for air. It turns out that before Kirby fully closes his mouth, you can actually interrupt it with an attack. And that actually allows you to get a little bit of extra height. Okay, here's the lever. Leads us back to where we were before, so we can continue on through Radish Room. The flow cancel is used in a couple spots in 100%. I think it's just like a neat little piece of movement. Now we're going to, I guess, like kind of like the basement of Radish Room. This is going to lead to the boss of Radish Room. A certain unnamed swordsman. So here there's the last Master Hand fight. This is probably the simplest one. Master Hand is just on the ground most of the time, so it's easy to attack. Unlike most of the mini-bosses in this game, Master Hand kind of works like the way that does in Smash, where you can stand inside of Master Hand when it's not attacking and you won't get hurt. For all the other mini-bosses, you will take damage if you're standing inside a hitbox. So what that allows you to do is that you can actually turn around more aggressively with the wheel, because you don't need to worry about the fact that you're vulnerable when you're turning around. So that allows you to take out Master Hand probably quicker than you would for any of the other mini bosses. So Shadow Kirby's going to be here. I'm just going to spit at him and move on to the boss. This character looks kind of familiar, but the game doesn't tell you their name. So this is like the canonical weapon for fighting Meta Knight. And the idea is that, try to get Meta Knight to do a downstab attack. And that's like when Meta Knight's most vulnerable. So that fight went fairly well, but did take damage. Alright, so final boss time. Actually, just kidding. So, can I get the winner for the donation incentive?
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the color that we're going for is, in fact, carbon. Just let me double check that quick. Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I'll just go with that. So this is going to be the last place that I reset, so that's why we're going to have carbon here. Unfortunately, what happens is that when you reset, it does clear what color you're using, so this is kind of the only time that we have for it. Yeah, so one of the things that you pick up in the chest is one of those Kirby spray paints. And what they do is that they swap the palettes. So in this case, all the pink and red get swapped out for black and orange. Alright. So I purposely chose the donation options to avoid ones where I still pick up along this route. I think, anyway. Alright, so one last trek through Carrot Castle. This is a part that we call Dark Mine Prep. So Dark Mine is the final boss of the game. And what we do here is set up two things. So of course, we still need to do a little bit of cleanup, but the segments are chosen so that two things happen. The first of which is that the AI Kirbys are guaranteed to be away from the hub room. Because if you enter the final boss and they're there, they join you in the fight, which is not that helpful. Alright, that's the last spray. The second thing that we want is that we want to enter the fight with Stone. Stone's been our best friend for fighting a lot of bosses. That's no exception for the first boss in the final boss sequence. Alright, I'm just gonna use this by carrying the mini in my mouth. Now we go to the last room here. This is going to be the only exception to the, do you reset or do you phone home? Here I'm going to phone home even though I don't have an ability, because that sort of keeps the AI Kirbys away from the hub room. Every time you reset, oops, every time you reset, they come back to the center. Ooh, that could have been really bad. Really don't want to take damage here. Be a huge time loss. Alright, so now we should be on to the final boss sequence. And so the reason why I entered it and reset earlier is because there's a cutscene that plays that sort of reveals Dark Meta Knight. And so since we watched it a little bit, the game thinks that we've seen it before, so next time we see it, we can actually just press start to skip it. So this is like the one useful glitch in the entire run. I'm floating a little bit in air so that I go into this vortex a little bit quicker. It saves like, what? 0.1 seconds at most. But, as glitchy as this game sometimes can be, this seems to be the only really helpful. And it saves like no time whatsoever. So about the first couple phases of Darkmine, phases 1 through 4, we're going to be starting it off with the same exact idea. So we go into the fight with an ability, combine it with the Master Sword to make a double star, and like the Battlefire and Boxer fights, we want to hit Darkmine with the double star twice. And so this happens even when Darkmine is standing still, and the reason for that is because Darkmine flinches backwards when gets hit, and then as a result actually gets hit by the double star again. Alright. So on Darkmine 3 we're hoping for Darkmine to attack and spit out a star at us while we kill it and grab that star. Okay, bad luck here. Yeah, unfortunately no stars. If you're able to get fire or ice from one of those stars, you can actually hit that switch immediately, and that will cut down on moving around this room just to get an ability. But that's okay. Like, most of the time, you're not going to get something. Alright, so just a little bit of a trick here. Darkmine 4, when it becomes vulnerable, is kind of random. So I'm going to shatter it, get it to attack a little bit quicker. Unfortunately, this is a really bad pattern. Dang. Now I'm trying to get a mix. I got one earlier in the form of a green star. I'm one too early right now for both of those mixes. Either you get 2 stars of any color. Alright, there we go. Third try. And so I get UFO to do the last hit. The amount of health that Darkmind has increases with each phase. So the fourth one has just enough health so that the double star won't kill, allowing you to set up that mix. So the reason why we get UFO in the first place is specifically for this phase right here. As you can see, I'm attacking the open eye, but once you hit it with any kind of damage, it closes its eye for quite a while. Alright. Good enough. I missed a hit, but that's okay. The idea behind Darkmind 5 is that you want it to hit with one big piece of damage as opposed to like many small hits in quick succession, because only the first one will count, because Darkmind will close its eye immediately after. So like most Kirby games, it ends in a space shooter. This part is super random. So hopefully Darkmind cooperates and just stays in place. That was okay. So just as sort of like a last reference to Melee, as you can see in the bottom right, there's like a score counter. During these credits, you can actually continue to hit Darkmind and rack up the score. I'm not going to do that because it actually creates lag, so I don't want the credits to take even longer. So timing ends when you see the 100% screen, hopefully. But that happens after the credits in the final cutscene. Alright, so I still need to hit it because getting it to explode a little bit quicker does save time. Alright, time's gonna be up soon. And time. So, do we have a final time for that?
Looks like it was 1:12:03.
All right. Yeah, there's that one chest sucked up a lot of time, but
Underestimate.
Underestimate, yeah. I was really afraid that I was not going to be underestimate. So, just want to say thanks for GDQ for having me. If you're interested in Kirby runs of any kind, feel free to join our Discord. There's people knowledgeable about just about every single Kirby game. Yeah, that's gonna be all for me. I understand we're behind schedule, so I'll sign off right here. Thanks.
All right, we've got a Twitch ad coming up, but before that, we've got one donation. We've got an anonymous $200 donation. It says, despite the roller coaster 2020 is putting everyone through, it's good to see the hope and positivity that comes when putting on an event such as this. Thank you to all the medical workers putting themselves on the front line for the rest of us. Sending donation incentive to Winston Zeddemore in New Ghostbusters 2. And with that, I think we will give you guys a Twitch ad. So we'll be right back after the break. All right, welcome back, everyone. While we get set up here for our next run, which is going to be Cullen Wino running Jimmy Neutron versus Jimmy Negatron, I'll just like to read a couple of donations about that amazing mirror run we saw earlier. Spock35 donates $50 saying this was so fun to watch. It took me hundreds of hours to get 100% as a kid, and I think I will have to revisit it now. You're amazing. No, you're amazing, Spock35. I'd also like to take a moment here to shout out the charity that we're, doing this whole event for, Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, is an international medical humanitarian aid organization that works in over 70 countries around the world, providing life-saving medical humanitarian care and speaking out about what they see in those areas. Their work aids people based solely on need, irrespective of race, religion, gender, or political affiliation. MSF is committed to safeguarding their patients' right to autonomy, confidentiality, and informed consent. 90% of their staff is national, meaning they live locally and are from the country that they work in. MSF relies mainly on the generosity of individual donors, with over 90% of MSF's income coming from private donors giving small amounts. And that means all of you guys, so make sure we keep those donations coming in because it's for a great cause. While we continue to get set up for this Jimmy Neutron run, we've got a couple of quick donations here. Das Quacken donates $20 saying, thanks for all the good runs. And Roofy donates another $20 saying, keep up the good work.